Hello again, my fellow finger-taping, belt-tying, joint-aching, acai-consuming, pajama wrestling enthusiasts. Jiu-Jitsu's evolution is a story that spans millennia. Our earliest records go back to ancient Greece, with practitioners of pankration, a primitive form of mixed martial arts, competing at the Olympic Games, with matches often ending in death. It would later find its way to the Orient by way of the Silk Road, where it would be adopted by the samurai warriors of feudal Japan. It would then find its way to 20th century Brazil, where it would be further developed by a family known as the Gracies, who would bring it to the public eye and show its effectiveness as a martial art by popularizing it through the Gracie Challenge and the first few UFCs. This would give rise to a new generation of hobbyists and athletes and a brand new sport that we all know and love today. And just as basketball has Jordan and boxing has Ali, in Jiu-Jitsu, a select few of athletes have separated themselves from the pack with a perfect mixture of talent and discipline to contend for the title of greatest grappler ever. So today's video will be about the 7 greatest grapplers ever, making our way to the top spot and the coveted title of GOAT. Welcome to the video, guys. If you're new around here, I'm Jedi. I've been doing Jiu-Jitsu for 7 years, and I make videos about Jiu-Jitsu every Monday and Friday that hopefully both educate and entertain you guys as well. Now, the grapplers we're going to be talking about today, we're going to go over things like how dominant they were in their divisions, whether they were specialists or they could stay at the top of both gi and no gi, and also how often they would step out of their comfort zone, go up a weight class, compete in the absolute bracket, and how well they would do when they would step up like that. Caio Terra. Born in 1986 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Caio Terra would start training Jiu-Jitsu at the age of 17, and only a mere 3 years later would be awarded his black belt, which is an insane accomplishment, going from 0 experience to getting your black belt in 3 years. How many others can say they've done that? 2 years later, he would go on to win his first black belt world title in 2008 and defend it 8 consecutive times, setting a record in his weight class. In addition, he would rack up 2 gold and 7 silver medals at no-gi worlds, 3 Pan American titles in the gi and 2 in no-gi. He now owns his own school, Caio Terra Academy, in San Jose, California. He's taken his focus off competing in recent years, deciding instead to focus his attention on bringing up his students, among them 2-time ADCC world champ Yuri Samos, and until recently 3-time world champion Mikey Musumeci. He's one of the most decorated roosterweights in history, easily giving him the number 7 spot on our list. Bruno Malfacine, another native of Rio, born the same year as Caio Terra. He is the latter's arch nemesis, with the two of them meeting in the finals of both Pans and Worlds on multiple occasions, and Caio often finding himself unable to crack the enigma that is Bruno Malfacine. Bruno is a black belt under Alliance, based out of Orlando currently, and with 10 world and 6 Pan American titles to his name, he's another all-time great at roosterweight, with a list of accomplishments that's very similar to Caio Terra's. It's only fair that we give him the number 6 spot, as time and again, whenever he's faced Caio, he's come out on top. Marcus Almeida Buchecha. His nickname actually means big cheeks, and at 6 foot and 3 inches and over 220 pounds of fast twitch muscle fibers, it's a fitting nickname. So I hear you asking, what's the story here? Well, besides being an absolute freak of nature, he is a black belt under Checkmat, and before he competed at ADCC for the first time, he went around to all the ADCC trials to compete and win the absolute bracket for the $10,000 cash prize. That's right, homeboy was a prize-fighting gangster before guys like Gary Tonin and Gordon Ryan would make it a thing. And he also has the most wins in the absolute bracket at Worlds, coming in with 6. That's insane. And if you add on to this accomplishment his 7 world titles at gi, 2 at no-gi, 3 at Pan Ams, 3 at the Abu Dhabi World Pro, 2 at the World Grand Prix, and 2 at ADCC, you can easily see why the man they call Big Cheeks is one of the greatest competitors that the sport has ever had. Andre Galvao, as owner and head coach of Atos Jiu-Jitsu in San Diego, former home to legends like JT Torres and Keenan Cornelius. This man needs no introduction. With 6 world titles, 6 titles at Pan Americans, and even 3 in the absolute at Pan Ams, Galva would already have achieved more than 99.99% of people that do Jiu-Jitsu. But as if this wasn't enough, perhaps one of his most notable accomplishments as a Jiu-Jitsu competitor is that after he won his weight class and the absolute at ADCC in 2011, he would be crowned their open weight super fight champion, and would defend this prestigious title at the next 4 ADCCs against the likes of competitors like Roberto Cyborg Abreu and Felipe Pena, and is scheduled to defend it again at next year's ADCC against the likes of absolute champion Gordon Ryan in a match of truly epic proportions. No matter where he goes from here, he has already established himself as one of the greatest grapplers of all time, and will help bring in the next era of BJJ superstars out of his home base in Atos. Gordon Ryan, born July 8th, 1995, which makes him a month younger than me. Yeah, that's not once made me question what exactly I'm doing with my life. Gordon trains up in New York with the Danaher Death Squad. He is one of Gary Tonin's first black belts. 2016 would be the year that people would start to take note of Gordon. In April, he would compete for a $50,000 cash prize in a 16-man tournament at EBI 6. The favorite to win this open weight bracket was seasoned competitor and Caio Terra black belt Yuri Samos. Ryan would face Samos in the semifinals right after Yuri had taken out fellow teammate Gary Tonin. It was a hard-fought match, but Gordon would end up taking the dub in overtime, going on to win the entire bracket. And in August of that year, he would take on notorious competitor Keenan Cornelius and submit him after a 90-minute match with a heel hook. Not a bad year all in all, but he would completely outdo himself the next year at ADCC Finland, where he would win his weight class, submitting Keenan with the arming guillotine in the finals, but only taking second in the absolute versus veteran Felipe Pena. He would return in force the next year, though, winning both his weight class and the absolute at Nogi Pan Ams and Nogi Worlds. But his career had yet to reach its zenith. He would outdo himself yet again, just last year winning double gold at ADCC Anaheim, winning both his weight class and the absolute bracket, with his hard-won victory over legendary grappler Marcus Buchecha, setting him up for a super fight with Andre Galvao next year. This meteoric rise to the top makes it impossible for anyone to deny his place amongst the Jiu-Jitsu greats, and it's why we put him at number 3 on our list. Hava Mendes, born on June 20th, 1989 near Sao Paulo, Brazil. He would start training Jiu-Jitsu at the young age of 11, which is something I think a good many of us wish we had the opportunity to do. From the age of 15 to 17, he would win worlds at blue belt, purple belt, and brown belt, but would break that streak when he competed at black belt for the first time, only placing 3rd that year. However, that performance would soon be shown to be a mere fluke. Hava's coach had made him do the ADCC trials a couple years prior, earning him a spot at the next ADCC. And it would be that year, 2009, that Rafa Mendes, at 19 years of age, would become the youngest man in history to win ADCC, after a 40-minute battle in the finals with his arch-rival Cobrinha. Hava would return to ADCC in 2011 and 13, taking gold and silver respectively, but afterwards would switch to competing solely in the gi, where he would set the record at featherweight with his 6 world titles. Hava would retire from competing in 2016, shortly after his 6th world title, and has since switched his focus more on his family and bringing up the next generation of competitors at AOJ Academy in Orange County, California. But all the records he broke and what he was able to achieve throughout his career have ensured that any conversation about greatest of all time would have to include him in it. Marcelo Garcia, born on the 17th of January, 1982, Marcelo would grow up on old martial arts movies. It would be his fascination with these movies that would get him into training judo and later jiu-jitsu. And a couple years later, Marcelo would convince his parents to let him move to a city 10 hours away so that he could train 4 times a day. During this period, Marcelo himself admits it was pretty rough. He had worked out a deal where he would stay at the gym and clean the mats so that he didn't have to pay for tuition. And as you can probably guess, a jiu-jitsu school in Brazil in the early 2000s is not a great place to call home. And Marcelo would end up getting staff a couple times due to the harshness of his living condition. But Marcelo, he was a man on a mission, and all his hard work was about to pay off in a big way. In 2003, he would compete at ADCC for the first time, where in his second match, he would face Vitor Shaolin, the favorite to win the bracket that year. But to the shock and amazement of everybody in attendance that day, he would take Shaolin's back and choke him unconscious within the first minute, going on to win his bracket. However, this was only a slight glimpse of what Marcelo's career was to look like. Marcelo would return to ADCC in 2005, where he would again win his bracket and go on to compete in the absolute division. And in his first match, he would draw a behemoth of a man, Rico Rodriguez. Rico would almost take out Marcelo that day by slamming him. Mind you, Rico was about 2 times as heavy as Marcelo, so just imagine the effect that must have had on him. But Marcelo would rally and finish Rico with a heel hook. Marcelo would end up placing 3rd in the absolute bracket that day, with his submission win over heavyweight world champ Xande Roberto. This would turn out to be a major theme of Marcelo's career, taking on people almost twice his weight, and to the amazement of audiences, beating them. Marcelo would go on to win ADCC a total of 4 times, tying him for the most ADCC wins with Gabby Garcia, which when you consider that Mackenzie Dern would be in Gabby Garcia's weight class, it does tend to make Marcelo's achievement all the more impressive. Marcelo also holds 5 world titles in the gi, which in itself would be a crazy record, as such a dominant competitor in gi and no gi, and the fact that he would often leave his weight class for the open weights and often do pretty dang well, I have no choice but to give Marcelo the top spot and crown him the greatest grappler of all time. Well, look at that, guys. You made it all the way to the end of the video. I'd say that 1, you either liked it, or 2, maybe you disagree with me, you think I missed somebody. If you do, be sure to let me know down in the comments below. But if you guys actually did like the video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. I'd really appreciate it. And if you guys would like to see more videos like this where I both entertain and educate you guys about jiu-jitsu, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell. I post a new video just like this one every Monday and every Friday that you don't want to miss. Guys, you've been awesome. I've been Jedi. Remember, stay hungry, stay blessed, above all, stay consistent. I'll talk to you guys next week. Adios.
Yeah, you love to talk, I don't talk, I get it. Yeah, you know I'm about it, if it kill me, I'ma let it. Run into the bag like I'm so athletic. I've been up since 6, making hits like tennis. I've been on fire, I just need my credit. Wanna